talking about, and actually presenting more opportunities, and that's a fact, because now we have the ever in this country lowest ever black unemployment. So you can say it's not enough money to support the households.
We give Trump credit for that.
Right, but you can say there's not enough money to support the households, but that's decisions that are being made. So you're a single mother and you have 3 kids. Well, of course that job is not going to be able to support your household, because there are other decisions that you're doing where it's not meant to support a household. One individual is not meant to raise 3 kids by herself.
Though, and you tell me what you think. One of the contradictions in terms of any support of Trump is he's got a $750 billion military-dominated budget that goes straight to the big marketeers. Both Democratic Party and Republican Party voted for it. That's not limited government. See, when you expand the military budget, you are expanding government.
Okay, so I would disagree with you. So this is, when I say limited government, I mean what do you believe is the function of a government?
The function of government is to protect its citizens.
That's the first thing you just said. So that's exactly, I agree with you 100%. So I'm comfortable.
But that means you're not for limited government to the degree to which the military needs to protect us.
No, but that's where I want them to be limited to. I don't want the government trying to raise our children, which is what you and I were talking about off camera. When they step in and they say, now we're going to regulate this, we're going to regulate that. That to me is a government that's overstepping. But when they're limited to military, that's exactly what we need the government for, to defend and protect.
61 cents of every dollar going to the military-industrial complex, and those oligopolies and monopolies are making billions of dollars, some of it waste. Would you would agree some of it's waste in the military?
Listen, yes. To the government. Nothing the government does sufficient. I agree.
If we could isolate it to the 750 billion and we were all fighting that the 750 billion was too much, that would be a great place to be.
Right.
But I think we're pissed off about all of this other crap.
But it's all the other
stuff. Like the trans thing is going to be the end of black support for the left.
I mean,
because they're giving hormone blockers to kids.
Our precious trans.
They're giving hormone blockers to children? You're giving hormone blockers to children? I need to hear more about this. Crap, man. What?
Support for the left.
I mean,
because they're giving hormone blockers to kids.
Our precious trans, there's a small group of human beings who are the most vulnerable. They're demonized the most. They have least amount of power.
They're cover of magazines.
They're not demonized.
Everyone wants their kid to be one. It's the hot new thing.
Oh my God! Everybody wants their kid to be one. It's the hot new thing. It's sweeping the nation.
Everyone wants their kid to be one. It's the hot new thing.
That is the one group that is killed more by vigilantes among our citizenship.
Not vigilantes, the gangsters they were dating. They're drug addicts who were hanging out with bad boys. They're dating MS-13 and Bloods and Crips.
And let me tell you why I'm not talking about these individuals. They're now trying to make this a rule in school that teachers tell the kids in grade school, we're talking about K through 5, that they're allowed to pick their genders. That's where I have a problem with it, okay? You live your life, you want to dress as a woman, you want to dress as a man, God bless you. I believe that this country should protect personal liberty. 100%, I agree. I will never have an issue with that whatsoever, okay? Right. But when you get to the extent now that you're demanding, that I now have to recognize people, that a grown man wearing a dress, I have to use the right pronouns, or I get fined or go to prison, which is actually happening in states like California, okay? That's ridiculous. So because I have 2 eyes and I call somebody the correct pronoun, I can get in trouble, right? And secondly, introducing it into the school system, which is over-sexualizing children at a young age, telling them they can
That's the media and market doing that
100,
too,
I agree, 100% agree.
Money again from the top.
That is when something goes from a personal freedom to infringing upon mine. Okay, I don't have to raise my kids to believe that they can pick their gender because they can't. I feel bad for people that suffer from gender dysphoria. Both of those two ideologies can exist in the same.
But wow, it's getting saucy. It's getting saucy. I love the way she stand her ground, man. God, sheesh, people are gonna start, man. He checking out Candace Owens, bruh. You see him? He checking out Candace Owens now. Yeah, I'm about to get brother canceled and I'm gonna get canceled from all the black cookouts, man, because of y'all. Hey, if y'all like this style of content, please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Also the notification bell so that next time we do post some content, you'll be the first to be notified.
Certainly, we've got to protect personal liberties.
100%. Wear a dress. I say, guys, if you want to go put on a dress.
Yeah, no one wants to make that illegal.
But I mean, it's not. You got the Amish, you got the Mennonites, you got the Baptists, you got different groups in religion, different groups in culture, different Muslims, Mexicans. Make sure personal liberties are protected no matter what.
I agree.
Now, I don't know about this dictate about the teachers telling the students. You're talking about in first grade, second grade?
Yeah, and they're not allowed,
Yeah,
they can call them in school.
In
school, they're allowed to call your son. You could not know your son's going to school, and they could be calling her all day by a different name. They are no longer required to tell the parent, because now they're protecting, and that to me is really crazy stuff, and that's what I speak out against, which gets me earned as a hate monger. And I'm going, do you understand what's happening here? You're confusing children. Children don't. I don't think about that stuff when I was a kid. You know, I for like 2 years, I thought I was a tomboy. I used to run around. I used to wear baggy clothes, speak with a deep voice. I was in 4th grade because I just thought the boys were cooler. My mom didn't shave my head and call me Michael. Teachers didn't call me Michael. I was still Candace. And then a couple of years later, I went through puberty, and suddenly I thought the guys were cute. Right? And that's what's being disrupted now that they're trying to normalize allowing children to go under hormone therapy when they haven't even hit puberty, or allowing these children to say that they're different people. It's confusing.
That's really going to make the black community snap.
I didn't know about any community. We're not just talking
more
about
black.
More
There's
black.
more.
Yeah, black
white people are more. Okay, my son's a girl.
Yeah, no. Black moms,
people
you're not calling.
You're
not calling my son. I don't have a son yet, but let me find out that some school is calling my son by a name that I didn't give him. Black moms will show up 100%.
I would argue that the whole trans movement is the end of black support of the left. It's they pushed it too far.
Right.
I think a lot of the left sees blacks as their pets, and they're going to lose their pets. Their pets are going to start misbehaving now.
They do treat us like pets.
No, but when you talk about just as a Christian, for me, I begin with the notion that anybody, any gender, creature with a language made in the image and likeness of God, they have a sanctity. That's why I say precious trans folk. They got the same sanctity that I have, that my daughter, my son, anybody else has.
I agree, 100%.
And that's just a spiritual truth that I hold on to, whether it's popular or unpopular. I'm just going down with it.
I agree with you.
But then when you move into society, you see, I don't want any kind of social engineering.
That's what that's what's happening.
You're getting folks saying, okay, this is the only way to go. No,
that's what's happening.
See, I don't know about that. If I saw that kind of thing, I'd be critical of it.
I'll send you something on it a bit.
But it's so easy to fall into a kind of dehumanizing mode. And I come from a people who've been dehumanized so easily. Black folk, brown folk, poor whites, gays, lesbians, Jews, Muslims. We got long histories of being easily dehumanized.
Yes,
and
I agree with you. But when we're so determined to be tolerant, we tend to tolerate intolerance, especially from Islam. Like everyone talks about Charlottesville and Heather Heyer.
I know I didn't comment on it because this is kind of heavy for me. I'm gonna be dead ass serious with you. I'm extremely grateful that my children aren't grade school anymore. I mean, aren't grade school ages anymore. That my youngest is freaking 16 years old. I'm extremely grateful of that. Hopefully she doesn't come in the door and get pissed off that I call her her. Hopefully. But to be learning these things at an age where you don't know anything. You're literally learning everything. Every single thing you're being taught in class, you believe that this is law as a child. You're believing that this is law. So what you're doing essentially is you're taking certain rights away from parents. And that's not cool. That's not cool. I'm not with that one. I'm not rolling with that. Sorry, I'm not. That's no. I gotta look more into this, but I'm not appreciative of this at all. Now I do understand what Cornel West is saying as far as all beings are children of God, they're precious children of God, and this, that, and other. He's still speaking from the set of everybody should be treated equally, everybody should be loved, nobody should be hated. Those are the type of things he's talking about. But as he admitted, he know nothing about this, the children being taught certain things at such a young age, and the children being able to dictate their pronouns without even checking with the parents, and the school can keep it as such as long as without even running it past the parents. That nah, man, no, heck nah, man. That's gonna get somebody. That's gonna get a teacher beat up. That's gonna get a teacher beat up, man. That's not cool.
Obviously a catastrophe.
Yeah, and I was with Heather just 20 minutes before she died.
You were?
Oh yeah, I was right there.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, I was standing right there. The neo-Nazi brothers were spitting on us, telling us off and so. We were singing "This Little Light of Mine." You know, I'm not clergy, but they were clergy. I'm just Christian. I'm a lay person. And we were right there, and Heather was right on the side. We were talking just 20 minutes before she was hit. You see, and she was just a magnificent a human being, very young, very committed.
But this whole concept of fighting
but
hate,
any
which we all
religion
advocate,
can be used, though, brother. I mean, Islam's got fascist versions.
But we hear
that's
so much
ugly.
about this stupid
So does
Nazi hate crap that I'm just sick of hearing about. No one talks about the West Side Highway.
The West Side Highway?
Well, yeah, where 6 people were killed, 6 or 8 were killed by a jihadist. No one talks about Fort Hood, about the beheading in Oklahoma, about the Orlando shooting at Pulse nightclub, about San Bernardino. We've heard about Heather Heyer literally more than all of those other victims combined. And every time you see these hate groups where they're out there to stop hate and hate watch and SPLC, ADL, it's just skinhead, Nazi, zero jihadists, zero jihadi training camps.
And quite frankly,
Well,
I agree with you.
truth.
And
We
I
gotta tell
think
the
that what
truth.
really, gets really, well, some black people can get very upset with me because I say, you want me to focus on white supremacy when we know that 95% of black Americans that are killed by other black people.
19 a day.
95%.
Yeah.
So my chances, I should be more afraid sitting next to a black man, all right, than if you're looking at just statistics. People don't like that, 'cause that's the truth. They don't like that. Oh, no, it feels better. Let's focus on the white supremacy. Let's focus on this area, which basically never happens if you're looking at statistics, because you don't want to talk about fixing our communities. And when I spoke at the White House 2 weeks ago, I spoke about Tyshawn Lee.
It does happen.
Yeah, but 95%
disproportionate.
every year,
Yeah.
of black Americans that are killed in a homicide event are killed by other black people, and that's not even including Hispanics. So maybe another 3% were killed by Hispanics. Who knows? We're talking about a slither of people, black Americans, that are killed by whites in this country annually, and yet the focus on it would make you think it's happening every single day. That's my problem, because you want to know what that says? That says that they're purposely having us focus on things they're never going to fix our community. Okay? If we want to talk about fixing our communities, we got to talk about gang violence, because and I spoke about that at the White House. Tyshawn Lee, a 9-year-old kid who got shot point blank, lured into an alley and shot point blank because of gang violence, because someone had a hit against his father, so they decided to kill his son.
Yeah.
The guy was laughing in court. Everybody turns away from it. We're not going to talk about it because, it was happening in our community. Let's instead go out and protest in the strange event that a black American gets shot by a police officer unarmed. And this is the crap that I say. They have you looking at something that's never, ever, ever going to matter, right? That's never going to fix anything.
You know what's messed up, man, and I'm gonna say this because I think this is ridiculous. Families. It's not only black people, but families, period. Because that's how black community look at themselves actually as a family. Now, there's some what is it called, raw apples in a bunch or something like that. Not raw. What is it? Y'all know the word. Bad apples. Some bad apples in a bunch, then we figure, just like families, any family, we'll handle this from the inside, how we handle this from the inside. Y'all focus on the rest of this world and how it pertains to us. We're part of it. Focus on how you can help us out on an outside of this. As far as the inside of this, we got this. And unfortunately, I mean, that's why they say things like defund the police. Because some places, some African American, some black communities actually believe that they can do a better job at it than the rest of the world. Than the rest of the country. And so it's like, they're ready to take it on for themselves. We don't want to talk about our business, because then that's going to be another stain on our people and our legacy. So we much rather talk about something else, something that's bigger in our mind. But Like the Larry Elder Denzel Washington video I did was talking about, it starts in the home. It starts in the home.
Looking at something that's never, ever, ever going to matter, right? That's
but-
never going to fix anything because they know that we're slaughtering ourselves at a faster rate, and that's what they want.
But two things. One is that there is a difference between a policeman who kills a person and a citizen killing another citizen. Because the
course.
police represent.
True, but they're killing
100%.
19 a day.
No.
19 a
Well,
day.
I mean,
the
the
blacks
numbers
are like
absolutely.
10 a year.
And we have to speak the truth.
Yeah,
And so the truth that you talk about in terms of disproportionately black on black violence is something that you have to speak to. But the second point is this, though, that there are a number of folk in the black community who both talk about it and try to organize
That's true.
against the black on black violence.
That is.
You
So
get
why
it?
aren't they? Why
So
don't they
you
have
get
the
it?
platform that?
It's a lot of them, and obviously they're not going to get the same. They're not going to get the same coverage as anything else. So they're trying to handle it from the inside. The black church is trying to handle it from the inside. Black community activists are trying to handle it from the inside. Inner city government are trying to handle it from the inside, because it almost seems like sometimes they feel like they're left all alone, and we have no help, we have no funds, we have nobody cares about what's going on in here, so we might as well do it ourselves. That's why a lot of people who even gain, a lot of wealth at a certain time of their lives, they don't move out of those neighborhoods because that's where they feel more comfortable. They feel more comfortable there. They feel protected there. And it's just so much that we need to talk about. It's so much that we need to listen to when it comes to when it comes to each other's stories and in our own perspectives. It really is so much we're missing, because like Candace Owens are making a lot of good points. The young man, what's his daggone name? His name, Nicholas Flyer. Shout out to Nicholas Flyer for this setup and for this talk. Appreciate this. He's making the same points that Candace is making as well, and they're very valid points. But Cornel West is trying to explain to them the other side of it. It doesn't help with the 95%, the 19 deaths per day. It doesn't help at all, because that's a lot of people dying. That's a lot of freaking people dying. Sheesh. Violent deaths, that's a lot. But it's so much to listen to. Like these conversations are on point. I like this.
The black on black violence.
So why don't they have the platform that these Black Lives Matter groups have?
Well, one is because you got a liberal media that does not want to put a spotlight on black people organizing themselves and dealing with problems inside of the black community.
Because that would help us.
Well, I mean, that's a certain white supremacist sensibility.
Right, and that's what I say. So agree.
Absolutely, but that does not mean, though, that you don't want to keep these police accountable when they shooting these young folk day in and day out.
Accountable. They go
Not
to
day in
jail.
and day
They
out.
lose their
They
pension.
go to jail. You got one going to jail,
Hold
brother.
up.
You got one going to jail out of all
Let's
these
correct
shootings.
the record. This is not happening day in, day out. In the year where they made it seem like it was the absolute worst, in 2016, 16 unarmed black men were shot and killed. By rate, more white men were killed by...
It's 1,000
But also,
in the
More white
country.
men,
unarmed
and-
can mean was
Yeah,
armed. It can mean
could
trying to kill
going
you
at
with
him,
a
trying to
car.
kill. That's correct. 16, even if we're being generous, 16, you had a higher chance as a black American man of being struck by lightning than you did of being shot unarmed. Okay, white men were killed by police officers at a higher rate, as were Hispanic men. We know none of their names because it was a narrative. It was all about the black vote. They jump a narrative, they decide who they're going to go after. In 2016, it happened to be police officers. We're going to see who it is in 2020. This is not about helping to save black lives. You can't tell me that you're focusing on 16 lives when a more unsafe place for a black person to be would be in its mother's womb. We're slaughtering our offspring at a way faster rate, and we have more black babies being aborted than born alive in cities like New York.
Whoa. Sheesh. She's Cornel, man, you gotta step it up, bro. She kind of on ribs and oh, she hit him with a 2-piece and a biscuit with that one right there. Look at his face. He's like, like I don't know how to make the face.
At a way faster rate, and we have more black babies being aborted than born alive in cities like New York. So to me, it's all a farce, and I think it is because the liberal media.
But I mean, you and I are critical of liberal media, but I think you have to have a bit more open-mindedness at the spectrum and the continuum. We've got statistics on the percentages of black men who will be pulled aside in the car. The percentage of men who, when we went to jail in New York City about 8 years ago here with the stop and frisk, when you had over 90% of the folks stop and frisk were young black brothers and brown brothers.
Those are
not killings. Those are not killings.
Right.
They were disproportionately pulling over whites.
No. Oh, not at all.
As they appeared in the crime
bro.
stats, yes.
No.
The way
Even
blacks and whites
judge,
appeared in the New York
brother,
crime stats, they were pulled over less than that. There was more whites pulled over than they appeared in the crime stats.
But remember the woman who
Bloomberg even conceded that.
Who was the judge when she went through all the statistics and said, "My God, under Bloomberg,
yes,
you had
and she was
over
later
3
fired for
Meyer."
incompetence.
No.
She was a boob.
Yeah, no.
I'll say something. I'll ask a question.
Sure.
Black Americans, we make up 13% of the population, and we account for over 50% of all the homicides in this country. Is it possible that we're getting arrested more because we're committing more of the crimes?
Oh no, in terms of getting arrested
I'm talking
for particular
homicides.
crime.
13% of the population.
We're
over
talking about
57%.
police killing or being pulled over
Okay, so you're
for driving in
saying
the car
for-
and so forth. When in terms of the sheer number of homicides, you've got a disproportionate number of poor black people, disproportionately men.
Well, we're
who
disproportionately committing the
have-
crimes in this country, all of them, across the
No,
board.
not all of them. No, not white collar crime. Not
that's
Wall
okay.
Street crime.
I'm talking about
You're talking about
violent crimes.
Oh, you're talking about like
White collar
murder and
crimes,
so-
I-
yes,
I-
absolutely,
you're
absolutely.
correct
No,
about that.
you're right.
It just
about
sounds
that.
like there's a lot
Absolutely.
of disingenuous agenda
That's my
with
thing.
the
It's
left.
like, just be
and at the
real.
beginning of
But
this,
the
you were
problem
saying
is, though, you got to have a press that is open enough to deal with all of these issues candidly, and that's what
press
we
is
don't
obsessed
have.
with the Nazi shit. They're obsessed with hate. We live in a racist society. It's way worse than it was in the 70s and the 80s. We've gone backwards in time. And the thing I hate about that narrative, like I've got these friends, Max Hare, John Kinsman, they're Proud Boys. Proud Boys are a multi-racial club. There's gays, Jews in it, and they all love Trump. The DNC is pounding on them. They're a hate group. These guys are getting sentenced next week, Max Hare and John Kinsman. 3.5 years would be best case scenario, could be 15, because Antifa jumped them, and it was like the third Antifa fight of the night. Antifa jumped them and they beat up Antifa. And the court said, you beat them up too much. And because of the Nazi narrative, the jury went, throw the book at him. One of the guys has 4 black kids, and he might not see those kids for 15 years because he fought back after an ambush. And it's the idiotic Nazi narrative.
They call me a Nazi sympathizer. They call me a
Nazi sympathizer. Wow.
Nazi narrative.
They call me a Nazi sympathizer. They call me a person that supports Hitler. I mean, you're exactly right. They overuse that term, and the problem is that when you do that, when you're willing to paint such a broad stroke that you start calling black people white supremacists, it becomes very hard to take you seriously.
They call it multiracial white supremacy.
But you know, one of the ironies of Charlottesville was, well, 2 things. One, I saw a black man marching with the neo-Nazis when we were being spit at and cussed out.
No.
So I said,
You know why? Because
He was not a neo-Nazi.
no, I didn't say neo-Nazi. He's marching
No,
with
he wasn't.
them.
There was 2 rallies that day. There was the statues.
That's what I was gonna say. It was about
and
the
then there was the
statues.
neo-Nazi crap after.
And it was
when
separate.
Trump said there's good people on both sides,
that's what he was talking
about the statue
Yep.
rally.
There were people that were just
No,
there.
but-
There were just
2
there
rallies.
black people that were there protesting because they didn't want the statue torn down
Yeah,
at
but
all.
But
and
these
then they
folks, I'm
mixed
talking about the
them
one with the
neo-Nazis.
mask and had the live ammunition with the neo-Nazi signs.
What, the Dukes, the Dukes Hazard, the Confederate flag? Or neo-Nazi signs?
It is the
It
Dukes
was a
has
combination of
flag.
Confederate flags and neo-Nazi signs. You know, it's about 29 groups there. So it was a heterogeneous group of right-wing folk willing involved in violent activity.
That
you see.
whole thing was
But
a
the other
bizarre
thing,
shit
too,
show
you
that
see,
we talk about
when
way
we
too
talk
much.
about Antifa too, you see, Antifa actually saved a number of our lives from being attacked in Charlottesville. Because there was all of a sudden We were standing there, and as they walked by, after about 20 minutes, it got more and more intense. Police pulled back completely.
That's what jeopardized your life.
Police pulled back
The
completely.
mayor trying to cause a scene.
Well, this was a crucial factor. I agree with that. Police saw what was going on and just sat there.
They were
but
told to.
when,
They were told to.
But all of a sudden, when there was a charge with these ammunition mask on and it coming at us, and we're standing there, the rest of the folk are in their clergy costume. I'm dressed just like I'm dressed now, and all of a sudden Antifa comes in swinging to protect us.
Well, let me tell you
Now
something.
you see that
that
kind of self-defense is very important. I think a right to self-defense is crucial.
Sure.
But listen,
It's
I
crucial.
can't
Tell that to the
let's
victims
not,
of Dayton,
let's
Ohio.
not make Antifa sound light, because they are a domestic terror group. They've attacked me multiple times. They've thrown things. I was sitting in a restaurant eating breakfast, and they chased me out and threatened my life.
That's
And we had to
wrong.
have an
That's
entire
wrong.
police force.
That's
so
wrong.
maybe
That's wrong.
maybe
They
back
killed
in the
9
day,
people in
maybe
Dayton,
back in
Ohio.
the
But
day, some
that's,
KKK members defended somebody, but to paint them in a light that they're suddenly a great group because they did
No,
one
I'm
thing.
talking about my experience with them.
Yeah,
I got to
but
be
we
true
have
to
to
my
be clear.
experience
They-
with
they
them.
are a
Your
domestic-
experience with them is one in which they did something that was wrong. If
Yeah,
they attacked
I
you
was
in
eating
breakfast
breakfast.
and tried to threaten your life,
It's all on camera.
then that's
Yeah,
wrong.
I was
That's wrong.
eating
that.
breakfast. You know?
Well, America's
That's
experience
wrong.
with them is also sending in Antifa guys end up in jail for this bullshit. They end up putting other people in jail. They end up committing suicide because they're in over their heads. And then the Dayton, Ohio shooting was 9 people dead, including the shooter himself. I've counted about 17 deaths that come from Antifa rhetoric
Well,
and
see, I
Antifa
don't know.
violence.
I don't know about that.
They're
That's
a
more than black
domestic
people that were
terror
killed
group.
by police officers.
Pardon me?
That's more than black people.
I
that
don't
were
know
killed by
about
police
Right.
officers.
Okay, look, I have a bad feeling the cops are going to bust this soon. Let's try to get some tangible, hard, concrete things that could help the black community in this country. Give me.
Dear sister, I mentioned one. There has to be honest spotlight casting on realities that fall outside of our ideologies. We had
That's
to be
what we're
candid across the
screaming.
board. We got to be candid about the militarism at the top. We got to be candid about ugly treatment on the bottom. You got to be candid about the wealth inequality. You got to be candid about the issue of personal responsibility.
So free speech.
You got to be. Oh, absolutely. You got to have free speech, but without injurious harm.
Okay, so Candace should be able to
injurious harm.
talk at any college.
Oh, sure. There's no doubt about that. Now, of course, see, college is a different place than a community. And what I mean by that is that colleges do have the right to decide
Yeah.
who is going to speak there relative to
And they
what
take
the
federal
issues
funding and they
are.
decide that it's only going to be leftist
But it's
politicians.
got to be ideologically and politically diverse. But they have a right to do that. But when it comes to community, that's very different. You have a right to speak any community, any corner, and ought to be protected there as long as you don't engage in injurious harm.
Right.
you see.
I've never, ever advocated for violence. I've never been violent towards any person. I say what I believe. And I think that you'll find, and this is why I think the media is so obsessed with painting us as they did after we had our debate, is that we actually agree on more than we disagree. I think what we disagree on is how we fix it, right? So we totally disagree on how we fix it.
We have a critique of the establishment in both parties. See, your support of Trump means you have an indictment of the conservatism in the Republican Party vis-a-vis its establishment.
That's correct. I think he represents a new form of conservatism, and when he called it a swamp, he was being honest. I mean, there's just people on the left and the right. We were all losing.
But the problem is, see, this is part of the contradiction, though. But when you come in, and then Trump, his attitude toward Wall Street, his attitude toward the military-industrial complex, they expand. They become even more powerful. You see.
So
Whereas
if my focus,
he has to hit them head on. He didn't have the courage to hit them. That's my left-wing critique. He doesn't have the courage to hit them head on, but he can spend all his time talking about precious Mexicans and Muslims and other folk.
well, good for the
You see.
illegals. Got to go. I mean, you know,
But
they're
you don't
harming
need
Black
to
America.
demonize the precious Mexican
no,
brothers
don't call
and
them.
sisters.
Don't call
He doesn't
them
demonize
precious.
Mexicans
in
Mexicans.
general.
It's
He does.
He
illegals.
talks about the ones
Illegals.
crossing
No,
the
he's
border.
talking about all of them as criminals, all of them as so-and-so. That's just
Yeah,
wrong.
First off,
That's wrong.
foremost, I'm going to.
Cornel West is leading with his heart. Oh, it's good to see when somebody's yelling and when somebody's defending certain sides of politics and they're talking about what feels right and what feels wrong. I've seen a lot of y'all say it. Look, facts don't care about your feelings. I get that, man. But sometimes you got to incorporate the feelings, the feels. Does it solve anything? No, it doesn't. It's not. He's not giving me anything to be able to walk away with this and be able to present it to a group of conservatives. If I'm in the same conversation, you're giving me nothing, brother. I mean, you are giving me something. You're giving me more compassion and understanding of why things are, but we're not getting any idea of what can be done. And that's the part that's missing right there. Not getting, I didn't get anything that what can be done from Mr. Cornel West, but I've gotten all of the reasons why things are the way that they are.
All of them is criminals. All of them is so and so. That's just wrong.
First off,
that's wrong.
Foremost, I'm going to say this. First, I'm going to say about illegal immigration. Period. We know that under Barack Obama, the United States commissions did a report to determine who was harmed by illegal immigration. They determined, and this was a report done by both sides, that Black American men between the ages of 18 and 21 are the people that hurt the most.
Especially in California.
Because they're the ones that have to compete. And when they come into these neighborhoods and they allot it, and he's correct to say, we know that the majority of the drugs coming over the border, where are they going into? Our neighborhoods, right? So to me, it is so crucial for Black Americans to understand that an illegal, anybody that's promoting for open borders and for telling you to flood them in are not the people that are trying to help Black America. They know that we are the ones going to have to compete for them.
Why wouldn't Trump say that rather than call them rapists and criminals?
Right, listen.
They're not rapists. They're coming to fight to get jobs.
A disproportionate number of the illegals crossing the border are rapists.
They are. It's weird.
80% of the girls.
80% of them are rapists? What the heck type of stuff is going on here? Huh? Y'all tell me something, man. 80%? Come on, bro. I don't need to see no statistics. What? Nah, really? If 80% of anything is anything, then god dang it, you ain't got to specify. You can say all. I'm sorry. Because if it's 51%, it rounds up. But 80%, nah. Don't say all. But dang it, if that's the case, then what are we arguing about here?
Across the border get raped on the journey.
What are we arguing
They
about?
take birth control on the way over the border.
That's just a
It's
fact.
just an accepted part of the transition.
Yeah, and that's why it's weird.
Mexico doesn't have room in prisons. They encourage criminals to cross the border.
Does that mean the 11 million precious
30 million.
illegals in this country? You think it's 30?
I think it's 30.
Well, I think most people traditionally say 11 or 12 million.
The
But
leftists.
of those 11 and 12 million, what percentage of those you think are rapists?
A disproportionate number, more than they
Rapists
are
or
represented
like
in the
just
population.
in general committing crimes?
Well, criminal. He says he called them criminals and rapists, so it'd be both.
Criminals.
I don't know, the way he talks about him is so vicious. It's so
I'm sorry, but if
cold-hearted,
you go
it's
into
so
any of these
callous.
sanctuary
But as
cities
a
and you
Christ-
see
as
the
a
amount of
Chri-
crimes that are being committed because
No,
they're
but-
sanctuary, you can't park your car
But-
in San Francisco for 5 minutes without it getting broken into. Happened to me. I was there literally 5 minutes. Came outside.
But that's
all
been
of our
true
stuff.
for a long time in a lot of hoods, a lot of
Come on.
communities.
California was not the way that it is now.
Well, I'm talking about other communities,
Yes.
other communities.
Listen, I'm
Yeah,
not. You're never going to hear me make a blanket statement that all people are this or that. I'm not
Right,
going to say
right.
that all Mexicans are coming to this country. Some of them are literal children that are being used by adults that are
That's
trying to get in
true.
here. Like
That's
you cannot. He should be careful not to issue those blanket statements. And listen,
he's
here's what
gotta
I'll
pull
say.
back
By the
on
way,
that. That's ugly
but he
language.
has, because you know what? Then he was a candidate. Now he's a president, and he hasn't done those sort of sweeping statements since then. And people are holding on to it because now he's actually proven himself to be a pretty stand-up president. He's delivering results. He hasn't said anything super harmful to anybody at all. And I agree that illegal immigration is a problem that needs to be tackled. So I'm willing to look over a sentence that he said while he was on the campaign trail.
I really wish that I paid more attention to that whole thing. Like whenever I heard Trump said something again, I'll be like, oh, it's crazy ass said something again. He wild, bruh. Oh, he said something again. He wild is on a what? Oh, he said something again. Oh, he got blocked on Twitter. Twitter blocked him. Wow. Yeah, when I used to hear those things, but I never went behind it and try to figure out exactly what he said, if it held any merit, or any of those things. And I probably should have. I'm believing right now that I should have because all I'm hearing about is the numbers and everything's looking positive from everyone who's on the side of the conservative. And I should have paid more attention.
Needs to be tackled. So I'm willing to look over a sentence that he said while he was on the campaign trail and look at what he's actually doing.
He said a number of times, but yeah.
He didn't say it a number of times. He said it one time in a speech. He says, at Fishburne's, he said they're not giving us their best people, and that's a fact. If they are their best people, the government would be fighting to keep them in their countries because they'd be driving up their economy. Obviously, they're not giving us their best people.
Well, it depends on what you mean by best, too, though. If it's just best in
the-
terms of professionals,
likely
in terms
to
of
commit crimes.
education.
Yeah,
and
least
so
likely to
forth.
commit crimes. Is if they were super educated
No, but
people
you
that
got
were
some
doctors and
professionals
lawyers.
and educated folk in this country and other countries who commit a lot of crimes,
We're
too. though.
splitting. I
Yes,
think we're
but
splitting
that's
hairs here.
anecdotal.
Well, I'm agreeing with you that we have to be careful and not demonizing an entire group of people.
Absolutely.
But I hope that you do understand that illegal
Just-
immigration is something that really harms black communities first and foremost, and that's a proven fact done by a report that was done under Barack Obama.
But see, I would want to put the stress not so much on that competition. That competition is real. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But my stress is much more on, first, the businessmen and women who come in wanting to exploit and walking away with profits that are just obscene. And this is where I'm with Brother Bernie, as you know, right? I'm much more concerned about that top 1% that comes in a variety of different colors who are getting off with obscene wealth and resources, while those of us who are in the middle classes, working classes, and poor fighting for the crumbs.
Well, then I got to tell you
Fighting for the
something.
crumbs.
You're with him, and if he was elected,
I don't see Trump talking about a critique of Wall Street the way Bernie does.
If Bernie was elected tomorrow, all of those Wall Street people would be sending their money overseas, and they would get out of here
That's the
as
problem.
fast as possible on their planes.
We all
They have the
agree.
resources to. And you
No,
know what
And
happened?
we would see
You know
how
what
big
happened?
of gangsters they really
No,
are.
you know what happened?
They're not
Then
committed to the
suddenly our-
country, they're committed to their own
Correct.
You want to know how
Correct.
we would see it? We'd all be broke. All of the markets would crash. There'd be nothing here because we don't have the entrepreneurial steer. The people that are entrepreneurs are going to leave for countries that allow them to be rewarded based on their hard work. Nobody is going to stay in a country. They say they're going to tax me 75%. I'm leaving. Period. Right? So then you're going to have a system where you have a bunch of people that are standing behind Bernie. The do-nothing people are going to have no money to go around because there is no entrepreneurship. The rich people have fled. It's exactly what happened to Chicago. We know that Bernie's idea of socialist policies does not work. It cannot be implemented. The grievance behind it might be accurate. The application of it does not work. So we have to come up with a better solution than we're going to take it from the rich people.
But just think of what you just said, though, sister.
Cornel West, you didn't show up to fight, man. See what you're doing here, sister. Listen. You're being too cold. Listen. You need to hug the situation. You need to breathe on it warmly. You're being too harsh, sister.
You're saying that Wall Street has got America with a gun to its head.
No, I didn't say that.
Well, you said it. If in fact Bernie were elected, they would leave the country, no commitment to the country,
That's just common sense.
and watch the country go under.
I would leave too. I'm not Wall Street. That's common sense. If they're telling me that they're going to tax me
Are
at 75%.
you saying that your commitment to America is such that you would rather leave the country with
No,
money
my
than watch
commitment to
America
myself
go
and
under?
my family is enough that I'm not letting you take 75% of my hard work as a girl who came from absolutely nothing and grew up in a rat-infested apartment.
Eisenhower
No
had higher
government.
levels,
Do
my
not
sister.
care. I'm answering your question.
Eisenhower had
If you
higher
answer my
levels.
question, as a
Would you
girl who
leave
came from
under
nothing and
Eisenhower?
worked for everything that I have.
Wow, she is saying, no, I'm telling you exactly who I am, what I am, how I came up, what's going to happen if this, and that, and the third happens as far as the amount of taxes you expect for me to pay. You're absolutely right, I'm leaving. I'm gone, and I don't care. I'm gone. I worked hard for this.
Absolutely nothing and grew up in a rat-infested apartment.
Eisenhower
No
had higher
government.
levels,
Do
my
not
sister.
care. I'm answering your question.
Eisenhower had
If you
higher
answer my
levels.
question, as a
Would you
girl who
leave
came
under
from nothing and
Eisenhower?
worked for everything that I have, no government is coming in and taking 75% of my income. I would leave. It's not a commitment to an America. It's a commitment to myself and a commitment to common sense.
So, but what I'm saying is, so if you had lived under Dwight Eisenhower's regime where they had 80%,
They had
you would have
80%.
left America?
No one paid that.
No.
That was like a few
No,
movie
they had
stars.
80%, brother.
No one was paying that.
Under
though.
FDR, they had even higher.
I have
You
to
would
look
have
it
left
up.
FDR.
I'm going to plead ignorant because I'd have to look up
We'd
because
have to check that out.
sounds high to me.
I'm
80%
telling you,
does not sound accurate,
yes,
so I'm
it
gonna
was for
plead
that
ignorance
1%.
because I can't
It
debate
was
something.
gradations. You know, it was gradations.
I would
It
have
was
to
for the
plead
1%,
ignorance.
It
but
was
this
for the
was back when
1%,
that
I'm talking about.
1%
It's for
was
the
like
1%. It wasn't for everybody now.
In infinitesimally small percent of the population. Movie stars, moguls were paying those.
90% it was.
Yes, But I think everyone agrees. No one likes a $500 million CEO salary when the people on the assembly line are paying 30. The problem is when the government tries to regulate that shitty situation, they make it even worse. The government makes everything worse. You were talking at the beginning about.
So what do we do then? How do you recognize the dignity of the worker if the only alternative is if we do something and intervene? The well-to-do walk off with their wealth and watch everything
One
come
thing
up.
we do is close the borders.
Yeah, exactly. Why don't we actually put more wealth back into the country, close the borders, take care of our people first, hashtag America first, right, what he's talking about, and create opportunities for the people that came from nothing like I did to become wealthy based on their own hard work and their good ideas. I don't need to hate the rich man. I want to learn how to become the rich man.
Well, this is where we have a difference. If it were the case that when we say America first, we were saying American poor and working people first.
We are.
We're not saying that. No, wealth inequality has gone up.
No.
It's gone up.
Yes, but
the tax
they've
cuts
both gone up.
Would you agree the tax cuts help the rich much more than it did for the working people?
No, I would disagree.
You think that Trump's tax cuts worked?
The corporations that got those tax cuts, I have two sisters. Both of them then instantly got bonuses and raises because of the tax cuts. I have a cousin who works for Starbucks.
I'm rich. They were murder on me.
Who works for Starbucks. She got a raise instantly. So you're saying the corporations got the tax cuts. The people work for the corporations. That's what you trickle down economics.
Yeah, but trickle down doesn't trickle the way it should. Nah, I think
so I just answered your question. Every single person in my family received benefits because of that, and they are not wealthy by any stretch of any imagination. One of them was working at Starbucks, and she got a raise because of the tax cuts. And all of them said,
but how big was that raise? How big was that raise?
See, now you're splitting hairs. You asked me a question, I answered it. So for her, you might say the raise is small. Okay, it was
very
$1.
Small, but the raise at the top. The taxes that they got at the top were gargantuan. Then we got your precious sister getting a little tax, getting a little increase.
She was happy about it. So you.
Well, no, that's not what people been happy. People can be happy for all kinds of things.
She was happy about it. So my sister was happy about her bonus. My cousin was happy about her raise at Starbucks.
You should get your raise and your bonus should have have a bit to do with how much skin you have in the game already. If I'm getting paid $20 an hour, and that's the level of work that I'm putting in, the $20 an hour, then my raise and bonus should be contingent upon that. Somebody else is getting paid $20,000 an hour, their raise should be contingent upon that. If companies are getting $20 million an hour, if there's any companies like that, there should be, you know what I mean? Everything's subjective. Like nobody should. Oh, they got a huge one. We should have a huge one. The size of it is going to change across the board.
Happy about it. So my sister was happy about her bonus. My cousin was happy about her raise at Starbucks. My other sister was happy about her bonus. So we don't need Bernie to be aggrieved for them when they're happy.
Thatcher used to talk about this, where they said the gap is the worst it's ever been, and Thatcher goes, "Yes, the gap is bigger now, but the poor are making more money. So yes, the gap increases and the rich are richer, but the poor also got richer."
Well, you gotta look
and a lot of lefties would rather the gap was smaller and both were poor
they want
than for this to be up here.
Their idea of equality is everybody be poor.
Oh no!
Every policy that Bernie is pitching, it basically means we will not have equality until everyone is poor.
But
it sounds like that. It's starting to sound like that to me.
Bernie is pitching. It basically means we will not have equality until everyone is poor.
But Bernie is not calling for absolute equality. He's calling for fairness. He doesn't want everybody to have exactly the same thing.
You can't rob people. You can't rob people because they made it and they were successful. And by the way, he's not saying just the corporations. He's talking about people that live within a certain income bracket, right? And I refuse, as someone that has worked for everything that I have, someone that travels 6 days a week to work, I refuse to give my money up for people that I know. I have relatives that are on welfare that sit on their butts all day and do absolutely nothing. I'm not doing that. I'm sorry.
But you have to agree, most of the money that we pay to the government by means of taxes go to the military. It's 61 cents for every dollar. When you pay taxes, the first person you look at ought not be the person on welfare. The first person you look at ought to be Pentagon, State Department, marketeers, oligopolies, monopolies who have contracts making gobs of money with guns.
Okay, so let's just shrink
with,
it all. Let's shrink it all.
If we could shrink the military
I'm a
section of the budget. Now, in order to do
And
that,
welfare.
we'd have to go against
And
Trump.
welfare.
We got to go against
And
Trump for
welfare.
that.
And welfare. I'm sorry.
But we hardly even have a collective right to welfare anymore after Bill Clinton in 1996. That's what he
talking
did.
about?
He undercut the right of citizens to have an automatic
what's
right
great
to
about
welfare.
municipalities-
So they got different programs that's in place. But it's no longer welfare as traditionally understood. That he ended welfare as we traditionally understand it. But when you talk about the corporate welfare at the top, that has been increasing exponentially, and they are corrupt elites who have politicians in both parties who they are controlling.
Trump is not getting controlled right now. That's pretty obvious.
He's a stick of dynamite.
He can't get a fair shake in the media, and that lets you know that he's going against
Well, no.
corporate interests.
The media is not the place to look because the media has its own blindness in terms of militarism. Has the media said anything about the 7 wars that we're involved in? 26,172 bombs the last year of Obama in 7 countries. The bombing that's taking place right now,
They would never
won't say
say
anything
against Obama.
Well, no.
Don't be foolish.
No. We talking MSNBC won't say anything.
No one.
Fox would say something against Obama, but Fox doesn't have a critique of militarism either.
No, I haven't heard a
Why?
lot of
Because Trump himself has a militaristic dimension. This is where we go back to our disagreement. He's got a strong militaristic disagreement. Fox is very much more and more an extension of certain crucial voices in Fox, an extension of Trump. MSNBC was an extension of Obama. You got 2 state presses with no serious public conversation. None I'm talking about the wars. None I'm talking about Afghanistan. None I'm talking about drones. None I'm talking about surveillance.
Is that true? I really want to know if that's true. If it's true that that conservative TV aren't talking about the things that's necessary for them to talk about, because he's naming a bunch of things and he's saying it's not being shown. And Candace Owens nor his name again, Nicholas Flyer are pointing out anything either where they are showing it that information. I just want to know as well.
Afghanistan. None I'm talking about drones. None I'm talking about surveillance. None I'm talking about the national security state. Now, look at the discussion these days about whistleblowers. Isn't it interesting to see the Democrats all concerned about whistleblowers now? Mm-hmm. Under the Democrats, they sending whistleblowers to jail like this. These are the worst person. I was at the trial of Manny in Maryland, right? He was demonized like I don't know what. He was just one example. There's a host of others too. Now you get a whistleblower against Trump, and they acting like whistleblowers is the best thing since Jesus. You say, wait a minute, this hypocrisy is overwhelming.
Well, can we at least agree on that? We all like all whistleblowers of all types.
Well, no, we don't have to like all of them, but at least you had to have a credible
They're
analysis
actual
of each
whistleblowers.
one.
I want
there
total
are some
transparency.
real ones. There are some real ones.
Everywhere.
We want to know what's going on behind those closed doors.
Yes. Uh-oh, cops.
Oh, good God Almighty. Oh, Sister Cody.
All right, so that was dope. I want to hear what y'all got to say about this in the comments below. And if you have yet to hit that subscribe button, please make sure you do so on your way out the door. Once again, guys, I am Van, and now we are all the LFR family. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video and hopefully inside of the Patreon as well. You all have been amazing, per usual. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time. Love you.